the introduction. I just thought it was a little longer than it should have been. Thank you so much. I have one quick question for the audience before we start, questions with the two speakers. How many in this room have shopped online thus far? And it's pretty much all of you, and you would have done this yourself, right? Not other family members, but as individuals, a lot of you would have done that, right? And of course, everybody's been to the future store, so I'm not going to ask that question. So that gives us a good sense of, where, how this audience is very well aware of, not only being able to shop in the brick and mortar stores, but also, leveraging e-retail to their advantage. So, what I thought was, I initially thought I would throw some statistics at you all to give you all a sense of, how large, the whole retail business is in India. So very briefly, the expectation is that by 2020, retail will be about $1 trillion in this country, right? That's a large number. You take 1 trillion multiplied by 70, which is potentially $1, and then you get a very large number. Now, of that, the expectation again of organized retail, right, which is more brick and mortar, but organized, like Future Group and Reliance and all these big groups. Expectation is that would be about $150 to $180 billion, right? So this 20,000 crores of the Future Group probably would be a much larger number by then. E-commerce, which is a much smaller, animal in the room today, probably about 11 billion today, is expected to race ahead to about 100 billion, right? So that's the expectation. So obviously you have a large growing market, and you have organized retail, which is growing well. You have e-commerce, which is growing even faster, and potentially, kind of creating a challenging environment for the organized retail companies, right? So we have to understand, and that's what we want to ask both the speakers today as to how they feel, one is going to impact the other. And the impact of both of these on the mom and pop retail shops, right? There are lots of people, probably even in this group here, who run single stores. I'm sure a lot of them would want to understand, what's the impact of two giants in the room fighting, and how that would impact the single store owners. So, if I'd like to ask Rakesh specifically, over the last, I would say, 3 years, e-retail has dominated our discussions. Whether it's in the newspapers, the ads that come at us, and to the extent, organized retail has probably taken a bit of a backseat. So how does, as the Future Group, as part of the organized retail industry, how do you perceive this, growing interest and obviously this expectations of growth for e-commerce, and how does that impact organized retail?
Well, I think, it's absolutely true that the last couple of years or so, the entire focus and the entire discussion has been about e-commerce. But at the same point in time, if you really look at what's been happening in the organized retail business, it has been a difficult and challenging scenario. And that challenge really did not arise out of the e-commerce business. The challenge really arose much before that. More like in terms of 2010, 11. Most of us really went through almost all the big groups between the 2006, 2004, 5, right up to 2009. We all were having a merry-go-round, and each one of us really expanded very rapidly. We scaled our business to a very large scale, and many of us were not able to focus in terms of doing the basics of the business right. And as when the market sort of kind of corrected itself in 2008, and the stock markets corrected itself. Every one of us has ended up investing in many more things far beyond the reach of our retail business. So almost, more or less everybody is, the same. If you look at the Reliance business, they try to become open stores with every damn category they needed to have a presence in. Shoppers Stop did the same thing. We did the same thing. So we were kind of, typically Indian is a herd mentality. When others do it, we should do it. That's what was happening. And as the stock markets disappeared, and as the financing costs kept going up, a lot of us had to put up a big break. And then we all put in a break. We had to correct ourselves, get rid of businesses which did not make sense. and fundamentally relook at what were we doing wrong in our own business. What was mistake? What are the errors that we were doing in our core customer business? And that's precisely where most of us have ended up spending time. And I can now talk more specifically about our business. We sort of reviewed everything that we did wrong. And we realized the fact that we're missing where the customer is going. Two things were happening. The number of people getting added into the consumption space was not happening at the speed that was expected. And that's more to do with the fact that India had slowed down, and which meant the fact that the Indian consumers were not getting added. And so there was an entire prediction that said the middle class is going to be getting added at this rate, and one could just focus on the new set of customers and try and cater to them. And that speed had slowed down tremendously. And it's reflected in that, our GDP slowed down, and we said that we were kind of, as a country, we were kind of stalled. So for us, it became important to refocus ourselves and say the fact that we need to now cater to the existing customer only. We can't bring in new set of customers as much. But the existing customer said, I need a better environment, I need better products, and I need better assortment. Yeah? And that's precisely what we have done over the last 2 years. Right? We've rebuilt almost every single category. We are no longer the same old Big Bazaar. We are a very different Big Bazaar. In fact, as part of this entire evolution, just about in November, we launched a new version of a Big Bazaar called Big Bazaar Gen Next, which is more modern, which is absolutely at a very, very different level than the stores that we have right now in Hyderabad. We opened one in Mumbai, we followed up with two stores in Delhi, and I'm sure we'll get one in Hyderabad very soon. But the Big Bazaar Gen Next is not only about the environment which has gone through a change, it is also the entire assortment, be it on the food, what we offer today as a range, be it our home range, or be it our clothing range. Every one of them has moved away to a very different level. Quality standards upgraded, but what we still stand true for is that we continue to deliver value across the board. That is something which is a high key for us. Parallelly, we have ended up investing ourselves. We've been investing money in supply chain. Because you see, when you want to run all these stores, the real work really happens in a warehouse, right? And the distribution centers, as like Srikanth was mentioning, what is Amazon, right? Amazon is actually a supply chain company, right? That's what they do best. They are one of the finest companies in the world, which has mastered the art of running supply chain. And we were sort of, as in typical Indians, kept opening warehouses in every place. We had 18 or 19 warehouses all over the country. None of them were forward, none of them had any technology, and it was becoming challenging to even deliver goods to our own stores, even though this product was so close to the store. So we said, all of this is not going to work, we need technology, we need to build in better processes. So what we did is the fact that we started shutting down those warehouses, and we opened a very large distribution center. Now we have almost 1 million square feet of distribution center in the heart of the country, in Nagpur. Right? So what we've done is that we've created a massive nodal hub for ourselves. It's technologically advanced, where we have everything is run paperless. There are sort of robotic systems installed in it, which ensures the fact that the products today, despite now they travel more, man. Sometimes they're traveling 900 kilometers but reach faster than them. They were just 100 kilometers away from the store. Yeah. So that's the change that we have to do. So what is simple terms I would say is the fact that it was good to be called organized retail, but actually we were not as organized. Right? We were on the sales program, because I think the growth itself just takes away your attention from the fact that you need to build an organization, you need to build teams, you need to train them up. And what was happening is everybody was launching business, people were also shifting like that. Right? The same thing happening right now in e-commerce. Retaining people is very difficult. In fact, every single day you read in newspapers, this guy shifted from here to here to here. The fact is, the only thing that is happening is that this salary has doubled and this salary has tripled in a short span of 2 or 3 years. And that's what happens in a model like this. So it becomes challenging to run your business. But I think when you restart thinking about consumers and you think about what the customer wants, right? And if you start getting your act together, the sales come with it. Yeah? That is the good part about retail business. And last quarter, most retailers ended up delivering some of the best growth, right? Far higher than what anybody else had expected, right? Close to 18 or 19% same-store growth. So that's something So there are two types of growth that you do in retail, right? You do an overall growth and you do a like-for-like growth. The only number which has meaning is actually called like-for-like growth. And like-for-like growth stands for growth over stores which existed 12 months back and how much have they grown. Like-for-like growth is equal to profit. Overall growth is not necessarily equal to profit. But like-for-like growth always generates profit. So the great part about a retail business and the organized retail business or as such a chain retail business is the fact that you are running a fixed cost business. We run a very large fixed cost business. Higher the sales we grow, the more money we make. Yeah? And that's where the difference is there with an online retail business. Online business is a variable cost business. Every order needs to be still delivered. Right? So there is a large part of the cost is about delivering the order. There is very few, the fixed cost is only the back end cost. Right? So they run a very large variable cost business. Right? So the profitability parameter is actually a little more difficult in an online retail business. And that's the reason Amazon took more than 20 years to start making cash, not profit. Right? Amazon still doesn't make profits in true sense. Some quarters they land up making, but in true sense they don't make profit even till date today, almost coming up to 25 years of their existence. But what they are making, of course, they're generating cash now. Right? But most of the cash they would sort of reinvest in their own business. They don't pay back to shareholders, etc. They just reinvest. So that's the real story in terms of how the businesses have really evolved over the last few years. Yeah.
So I hope all of you in the audience are thinking about questions to ask both of our speakers. I'm going to have a couple more questions first from my side before we open up this to the audience. So I think, Rakesh brought some very interesting things, right? I'm sure a lot of interesting things, but two that stuck out for me. One is about how, brick and mortar is leveraging technology extensively, right? To kind of give the consumer what he wants or she wants at and when she wants and he wants. The second aspect is the fact that somebody like an Amazon in the US and now globally survived, close to 17, 18 years without making a profit. So, which brings me to our next question, and this time for Dr. Srikanth, in terms of, we've obviously in the last few years that we've kind of said e-retail, it's been synonymous with, Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra, all of them making huge losses, Jabong, right? And, giving customers extensive discounts. Can we expect that they can continue doing this for the next 15 years, for example, and give organized retail a tough time going forward as well as they have in the past?
So obviously this has happened for the last 3 or 4 years, and I don't expect it to actually last for more than another 2 or 3 years. Because at the end of the day,
is that what we should expect as consumers?
I think at the end of the day, what will end up happening is these businesses have to survive on their own, as Rakesh was pointing out, and it is a variable cost business. A lot of the cost actually is part of the delivery and returns and things like that, and a lot of the focus has been on that also in terms of optimizing it. But I think it's still what we call a land grab kind of mentality today, and whenever you're online and you have headroom for growth, you probably want to kind of become either the first one standing or the second one standing, because there's no room for number 3, because someone had said this, right? The first guy in an online kind of business will have about 80% market share, next one might have 15, and probably there'll be a third, might be 3 or 4, and the rest of people are part of this long tail, right? So I think that little bit of competition will continue for the next 2.5 years, but like very soon, capital is scarce, number one, right? I mean, people are not going to write big checks. You can also already start seeing that some rounds are happening more at a down round, number one, which basically means some of the shareholders are going to get disappointed who have invested. The second thing is they're also going for venture debt. When all of these things start coming up, you'll have to actually start servicing some real business-oriented kind of financing issues. So I would think in about maybe a year, 2 years, you'll start to see a lot more brickishness to the online, both in terms of management, because you'll see management is also changing. If you look at like Flipkart today, they've actually been completely changed, the crew on top, and that same thing will happen with Snapdeal. And I I don't think it will ever give offline retail, organized retail, any kind of a fight. I basically think it's reasonably symbiotic. I think both people need to go to a particular point, and I think there will be enough of basic overlap. And I also feel that like this whole notion of online to offline, offline to online will continue to play, because a smaller kind of retailers who want to actually participate online, there are many avenues that are there today. For example, if you look at a company like Now Floats or Sellerworks, etc., they actually help these smaller companies come online and use the omni-channel effect much more effectively, which they could not. At the same time, you also have this like very cool offline-online combination. There's a company called Google that we've actually invested in, which does basically crowdsourced fashion. So people just walk around in the streets, take a snap, and once they've done that, there's already kind of all the offline merchants online in terms of essentially their catalog. So then they're given the shopping experience, saying if you walk 100 yards on this road, you may actually get the same shirt that you liked. And so things like that are happening. So I'm pretty sure the organized retail folks will also probably take a leaf out of that and start to kind of bring in those experiences. If you look at like BLE beacons, if you look at like essentially what the stores, at least in the US, are doing, you can go in and you don't have to stand in queue anymore. You can just click on something, and it's already put in a bag, and then you can come back. So it's this whole notion of these two worlds will meet.
It's fascinating, right? The kind of business models that are emerging and the kind of opportunities technology is creating, A, for businesses, and B, for the consumer, because ultimately it's always the consumer who wins in this. So I think this may be a good time now to kind of have questions from the audience. So if you can start your question. We have somebody with a mic. But once you ask the question, just highlight which speaker your question is for.
It was an excellent insight given by all of you. Thank you very much. I always, most of the time, 99% I do it online shopping. But the time where I get deceived is with the clothing. The one what we order on the online, we don't get the same thing. Is there any solution for that can you all give? And this question is for Rakesh Biyani. And what kind of food business are you into?
Just visit a store nearby, see the product, you pick it up. Don't worry about what comes in that box. Don't worry about the fact that how do I return
It
it back.
happens most of the time.
If you really look at it, how difficult it is to shop online. The clicking end is fine. Thereafter, you have to coordinate the fact that the delivery will come in. Now you need to train your servant to accept the delivery if you are going to be missing. If it is not correct, then you have
That's
to
why
you have to train him how to return it back. You have to ensure the fact that it has received out there. Then you need to ensure the fact that the money that you paid is being credited back. If it doesn't come, then you'll have to make calls there. Then you'll have anger out there. You'll get frustrated.
No, I always let it go.
Should I go on?
No, I always let it go, but is there any other solution?
Yes, visit some of these stores.
Can we sue them?
This may be an opportunity to highlight about how future food is also becoming omni-channel.
So I think the key lies where is the key, and it was very important to hear what Srikanth said about what Amazon did, right? And how did Amazon really build its business? Amazon really built its business on first creating a product category called books, which was very easy. There was no trust parameter question mark. You couldn't sell somebody else's book when you know what book you're selling. It was very easy to shop. There was no question about quality, etc. on the book. And that's where the trust really got built around the Amazon model. And that's what is missing in India today. And it's not missing because they don't want to do it. It's just the fact that it's not allowed to do. The way the entire Indian law is structured regarding retail is very complex structuring. All these businesses are sort of a myriad of companies with nobody knowing where is the real work actually happening. It's very, very jugadu work across the board. Unfortunately, that is what it is. And everybody has tried their best to explain to our government, the last one and the current one. For some reason, retail is a dirty word, right? The government believes, opening up retail for foreign company is not good for our country. And maybe I think we need a women's delegation to protest in front of, or at least put in a requisition, and the floor should send a letter across to Mr. Modi and request him, plead him that please allow foreign capital. We will get the best shopping experience. We don't need to go overseas anymore for same. We can have them out here in our country itself. And maybe he opens it up for us. I only hope on the women's, that they will actually create this revolution of allowing retail to get opened up for FDI capital. And if that happens, I'm very sure the fact that you have far better experience in shopping in the country than what we have today. The challenge, why is the shopping experience not as good in India as much as now? Yes, there are great malls coming up, but reaching out there, it's a typical problem of the urban infrastructure in India. Right? And the challenge in this country is the fact that municipal corporations don't believe that shopping has got to be an integral part of town planning. Right? Whereas the rest of the world, shopping is an integral part of the town planning, and that's the responsibility of the municipal corporation or the town council. They work towards ensuring the fact that their citizens, they get the best shopping experience. Because when they have the shopping experience, jobs get created. Retail typically and only creates local jobs. It does not create remote jobs. The jobs are only created locally, which is another good part. And that's the reason the corporations work towards it, because they want to have jobs. And when you have one retail shop, you always have a cafe which opens up. And when a cafe does well, a restaurant opens up. So that's how the chain works, and that's how the jobs really get created. And so maybe one day we will have it. Unfortunately, our country has landed up going the mall route rather than the high street route. Ideally, we should have been going through the high street routes, but it's not happening. I'm sure it's not too late, and there are many more smart cities which are going to get built. We are already working along with Mr. Naidu as he builds the new capital in Andhra. And there is a clear focus. Andhra has already announced a huge retail policy, which has happened in there. Maharashtra government just announced a retail policy. So there is certain, as a retailers association, we have been working very hard to get a recognition for that. Now, what we need to also think through, right? While we had all the hubs go up, 99.8% shopping online, very few people actually do that, because 92% of the retail business in the United States of America, the capital of e-commerce business, actually happens in the retail stores. 92%. Right? Tesco, the largest supermarket retailer in the UK, 92% of its business happens through its stores. They have one of the finest home delivery businesses in the world. Nobody does better grocery deliveries than Tesco does. Yet, only 8%, and 8% after 20 years of being in this business. So look at the commitment of people. People want to go. Going out for shopping is a pleasure. That's the reality. It's a stress breaker. It's something new. Think about it, is it going to be fun shopping on Myntra to buy clothes for yourself? Or is it about going to a store, ये भी अच्छा लगता है, ये भी अच्छा लगता है, ये भी अच्छा लग रहा है? So I understand. I'm sure you can't wear discounted clothing for this event. So there is always going to be occasions like that. So I think.
But every movement for one big boss has a sale that every shop is going to have this one.
See, I think sales is a good phenomenon to have. It's a marketing stuff. There are genuine sales of it.
Sales always increase the price. Like Mr. Sundararajan said, that
Please, I want to just assure you. Can I assure you one thing? Right? In the organized offline trade, it is not possible by law to change price in this country. You are, as consumers, protected by significant amount of laws which are very stringently applied in this country. Right? So prices can't change. Do you believe that I can change prices in 200 stores when this country has a law which says MRP must be marked on a product? Can I redo the tagging in 200 stores? I produce almost 12 crore garments a year today. Do you think what is the logistics cost to do that exercise? It's not worth that extra 100 rupees. The cost itself is too high. And then, will I want to break the trust of my customer? I rather lose, but I want to win your trust.
But there are, let's say, when there is a discount on the flex stock.
See, I think typically, there are all kinds of things happen, but fresh stocks added. That's what you mean, anyway, I'm sure we'll come to it. So, just to close that subject, right? There are good retail stores around you. They build trust. You have a chance to touch and feel. One reason why offline retail continues to survive all over the world is because there is tremendous merit in touch and feel. Look at what is happening with Apple. One of the biggest features that Apple tried to share to you last year when it introduced Success is, I have 3D touch. It sort of simulates physical touch. But digital is digital. Nothing can be enjoyed digitally.
Sir, I would like to ask you one thing. Because I love to shop my vitamins and supplements all online. So how authentic and safe are they to be ordered from Amazon or some other site? Because this is a really issue relating to your health. So is it better to go to a chemist and get these products, or you can trust and buy them from Amazon or other sites?
So actually it depends, right? At least in the US, when you talk about drugs online, there's a basic FDA regulation where there are labels which you can actually authenticate. You can say this is available, you can actually do a compare. And I would say 99.9% reliability that you will get something which is genuine. In the context of India, if you're buying something from Amazon, they will still try to kind of cater to that amount of genuineness. Which I think sometimes at your own local pharmacy or druggist or whatever, you may not actually have that guarantee. Because
discounts also, so you get direct sometimes.
No, actually, so they have to be very, very careful about that aspect, right? So I think you will get it. But the funny thing about India, which I realized, was there are 3 kinds of drugs available. One which has a normal milligram of the drug in it, which is generic number 1. Then there is generic number 2, which has 3 to 4%, or 3 or 10 milligrams in the same thing. And then there is generic number 3, which is 1. So the typical corner store guy will only have number 2 and number 3. And these guys will not be allowed to do business if people start complaining, because I think you got to actually kind of take a step back and say, okay, let's forget about the Flipkarts of the world or Helpcarts of the world or whatever, right? Amazon will not be able to survive if they do make even one mistake. Like just that one incident with Uber. If you look at all the other stores, if I were to kind of say kind of unpleasantness I have suffered at Reliance and things like that, and the number of times I have complained, nothing happens, nothing changes. But that one incident will kind of screw them up. Similarly, I think at least when it comes to drugs and other things, right? It's very, very critical for them to actually be very alive.
Here I wanted to ask 2 questions, one for Rakesh and the other for you. Rakesh, when you talk about economies, the world economies, like for example when there was recession, probably the only country which survived in the US was California, which had more of mom and pop shops. Now, when we have big retail markets coming in, what is your company per se looking after these mom and pop? What policies are your companies taking to prevent the interest of the mom and pop shops? Because that's where the economies of the country strive.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think one of the things that we recognize as a group upfront is the fact that it's going to be impossible for us to compete with the mom and pop retailers, and we have never tried to compete with them. Mom and pop retailers have their own efficiency models, which are very difficult for our people like us who run a professionally run business and compliant business to even match. So we never try to compete. What we try to always do is the fact that let's look at the grocery business, which is where the majority of the mom and pop businesses are. We've typically tried to focus on an extended assortment, because the mom and pop retailer, a generic mom and pop retailer. Now, of course, some of the mom and pop retailers have further evolved and they've added larger assortments. It's typically focused on selling about 300 stock keeping items. They won't have a very large assortment. They're very focused. They look at the best sellers, they would carry the best sellers. But at the same time, there is a certain set of consumers today whose palette is no longer 300 items, right? Your palette is a large one. Let's look at what's happening at home, right? And look at what's happening at the dining table at the home. When we were growing up, the dining table at home was a standard meal made for the home. Everybody in the family were expected to eat the same thing. And whatever you were having, but it was not the fact that everybody, be it the small guy or the big guy, the granddad or as a young kid, all ate the same. And now look at what's happening. If you have 2 kids, they could be eating 2 different meals. One could be having Chinese, the other is an Italian. We could be still having the dal roti. There's a food court running on our dining table, right? And that's typically happening in everybody's home today, right? And that is making the change in terms of what assortment you want to buy. And that is where people like us come into play. So we are really trying to cater to the new set of customers, the new consumption that is getting created in India. And this is being driven by the new generation. You know? And of course, the ever-changing people, right? We are all changing so much. Think about us 20 years ago and today what we are.
So in future, will your group look into something to prevent the interest of these mom and pop shops?
So as I said,
that are repeated, that the economics of the country strive on them.
so what I'm trying to tell you is the fact that, we would not, normally would not, really try and compete or discount products which are typically sold out of those kind of stores and lift their customers into our store. It's actually not profitable for us to get that customer into our store, because our cost economics doesn't have. So let's case a case of, a Nirma powder is what a mom and pop retailer will typically sell. We don't sell Nirma. It doesn't make economic sense for us to sell Nirma. Now that is where we create a difference. For us, Deal is not an important powder. For us, Surf Matic is very important. Ariel is more important. Because that's what our customer is looking forward to. Then what we are working towards is the fact that we work towards the fact that how do we upsize it to make your shopping more simpler. There is a sachet business model for mom and pop. Ours is a pack business model. So this is how we created differentiation. We have never tried to compete with the mom and pop store. Our intention is not to compete with them, and we want to leave it to them. Now, let's take it in the clothing case business, right? Now, mom and pop typically is a boutique model, right? And boutique model, where typically the second garment is not the same. We're not into that business. I'm not trying to cater to the boutique customer at all. We're into a mass production business. We produce thousands of pieces of the same style, and we're really looking at people who want to buy more of those same. So this is how we have differentiated. When we started off our business very early, we tried to partner with many of the mom and pop people who are the best in their class, offer them space within our store, and work together. Now, unfortunately, some of them can grow with you, and many of them are unable to grow with you. So you part ways. So that typically happens. But Future Group is not completely clear on this fact. We will not compete with the mom and pop retailer. We don't want to kill ourselves. That is what the reality is.
Thank you. So many more coming in. But I still feel like a layman, and I've been following this clicks and bits kind of business for a long time, because the travel, which is more deeply affected by online. It's just happening, and year on year you keep hearing people coming in more and more. Do you think in a country like India there will always be somebody trying to get there?
Actually, it's more about the mechanics of what the business should be, right? I'm not saying there will not be attraction for people to come in and do some kind of variant of this model. That will continue to happen. But at the end of the day, when you look at any kind of online economy, there will be only a few people who will stand up. There will be consolidation that could happen, and consolidation is happening in different ways. For example, you've seen Snapdeal pick up one of the payment guys called Free charges before, but now they picked up a payment gateway also for like about. So they try to integrate things, make things a lot more efficient, make sure that they're not paying percentage points, etc. So that will happen. Maybe the number 2 will kind of merge with number 3 and get some economies of scale. Maybe say someone like a Future Group might say, okay, these guys have now kind of reached a stage where the valuation is decent if it comes down, and pick that up. Maybe I'm just throwing out things. So those things will continue to happen. But I think what we're seeing is just around you, right? Because this phenomenon is more urban. Just around you, if you go back and going back to third point, everyone's doing these deep discounts, so everyone's like talking about big deals happening, and everyone's on WhatsApp. They say, okay, go to this site, you're getting this. So that frenzy is happening. But actually, when you look at it in macro terms, Rakesh is right. I mean, if you look at organized retail, it's like 10, 12, 13 times more than what this is today, right? So I don't think. Well, it cannot be. I'll tell you why. Okay, this is the funny thing about this game. It's called private-public economies, right? The public market is very brutal. Number one, it looks for real numbers, and you have to perform, and you've got to be profitable. When you're talking about like essentially investing for the future, like Amazon did, I mean, they were probably one exception, and they also went public. These valuations are really not real when you to look at it. Because what tends to happen is, I put in X amount of money at valuation A. Someone else comes in, okay, I want A to be at least 1.5A, so that at least I feel good. So B comes in, puts in money, and then when someone else wants to come in, it will have to be C. So some of this actually is basically a function of that, right? And it keeps going. But the fact of the matter is, you do need a lot of cash to kind of establish a leadership position in an online world. And you will burn cash to kind of get like that pole position or market position. So in the short term, yes, discounts is one easy, no-brainer way to do it. But once, like, say, the noise dies down and there are only 2 people left, I'm sure common sense will prevail. They'll go back to basic mechanics and figure out, okay, do we need to carry all these goods? What are the lines which are profitable, as you were saying? Line on line kind of view will actually lead you to profitability. So that kind of common sense will prevail.
I have a question for Mr. Rakesh. A lot of big retail chains have not been successful in India. I think probably Future Group is one of the biggest retail chains which has been really successful in India, unlike abroad. What do you think has been your biggest USP? Is it your value for money concept, or is it your inventory management? And I have my next question is, does Future Group plan to go online in future?
I think, there are other retailers who have done quite well, and so it won't be correct to say that we're the only ones, Yes, we built our business in a slightly different manner compared to the others, but I think Landmark Group, which runs Lifestyle, Home Center, fantastic retailers, Shopper Stop, a good retailer. Reliance has been able to build some good businesses in their portfolio, and then there are others who are trying, but if you really look at other Development Group, very good retailers. So not that people have not, everybody is trying. Unfortunately, yes, retail is about scale. Clearly, and if you're going to be in the business of groceries, you have to create scale. Or in the business of clothing, without scale, you will not be able to make money in India. It's becoming expensive, this country. It's no longer a cheap country, labor is expensive. Everything is becoming expensive. And I think all of us feel the pinch. Many of us really question some of the numbers which are released. But everybody seems to say that, my bills have become more than what the inflation rate we are seeing that. But that is what is clearly happening. But I think, as I was saying earlier, also saying that, one of the things that we do as a company, we've been really customer-centric and India-centric. That's our focus. And we spend extraordinary time understanding communities. You really understand that in India, consumption is community-driven. Right? The palette of what gets into your home is really dependent upon your roots. Right? Very few of us really change irrespective of where we have shifted homes to. Right? You may have had been living in South, born in South. If you go to Delhi, yet you have that same palette. Right? So palettes are really community-driven. For us, it's in good place. So it's about understanding what chains eat. They are different behavior. Technologies are different behavior. And in a country like ours today, where we have migration happening across in many big cities, people like us thrive. And that's where the small retailer actually is unable to, migrate himself to. Because the more people travel, the more people start living in different cities, which has been happening. Less in Mumbai, but a lot in Hyderabad it's happened, in Bangalore it's happened, in Pune it's happened, in Gurgaon it's happened. You can't go to Gurgaon and say this is North India today, right? Gurgaon is not North India. Gurgaon is real India. It's a mix of people from all over. An Indigo flight schedule really reflect you where people have come from. When you see all of a sudden Bangalore to Bhubaneswar direct flights, well, there's a huge demand happening there, right? There are a lot of Odisha people who are living in Bangalore now. And which means the fact that we've also got now looking at what does the Peoria guy buy? What is the oil that he uses? It's different. That's the reality. And this is where people like us use our knowledge, our learning, and we try and improve our store performance, right? And we're spending extraordinary money right now in understanding loyalty, and your behavior. What goes into your basket with a different set of product, so that we can further improve. We are partnering with some of the global giants in that space, using their knowledge of 25 years, using some of the state-of-the-art technology, and really trying to think through about, can I personalize the offer? Can I personalize that over the next couple of years to such a level that I can actually address you at an individual level? That's power is possible today because technology has evolved. machines don't cost as much money as what they used to cost 10 years ago. Yeah. Today we have so much power, it's so much processing power available, it's making a big change. Will we go online? We will do what we call the omni-channel view, right? And what is omni-channel? Omni-channel is about simply having one view about the inventory that you have, and can I trade? See, one thing is a reality. All of you have raised your hands, you shop online. There is certain convenience that you find in it, and there are going to be times when you want that convenience in your life. There will be times when you want to shop at the store, there are times when you say, yeah, can't do it, but I still want it, right? So we must accept that times are changing, and we are accepting it. We are investing in a digital platform. We are going to be in a position to offer you digital services, which means convenience of shopping, shop online, shop on your phone, but come and collect it at the store if you want it quickly, deliver it to your home. Yes, we will be able to do some things on that front. When will we do it? Today I find that the unit cost value is too expensive. There's not money to make on it today. It's a difficult proposition. If I start investing in it, which I don't have the capital, I'm not allowed to buy, I'm bringing those foreign capital as what many others are bringing in, which means the fact that if I do it today and I start investing that, I won't be able to upgrade my stores. And I rather want to upgrade my stores right now, right? So what we are doing is the fact that we are looking at ideas, right, on various things, which first increases the experience in the shop itself, offering more services, more convenience in the shops, right? And there will be an investment in digital. I can't ignore the digital straight. There is no possibility of doing that anymore. So that will happen, and there are a lot of plans around that.
Mr. Srikanth.
Go ahead. Just how much time should we be budgeting for this? 10 minutes more. So maybe last 3-4 questions, and then I can quickly summarize.
My question is from Mr. Srikanth. For example, if there's an offline store who's been in the business for about 30-40 years, and now they wish to go online as well, what would be your advice? Is it more sustainable for them to start their own, or start selling as a marketplace model on Amazon or any of the giants? What are the pros and cons of both?
So I'm a big fan of reuse, right? I mean, being a technology person, if there is something which you can leverage and reuse, you should. So there are enough offline to online kind of platforms which you can actually be part of, and you can actually don't have to be exclusively with any one of them. You can actually be on all of them as long as you make sure that the omni-channel effect is being taken care of, which means, say suppose a person X comes from one of the marketplaces and buys something online, someone offline buys something, another person comes from another marketplace where you register, you should make sure that the inventory, everything is kind of taken care of, because you don't want one person to feel disappointed. So there is technology available, as Rakesh was pointing out, and if you take a look at SellerWorks, or you take a look at like Outfloats, etc., they will actually kind of promote you to get there. If you look at onboarding that is being done by Flipkart or Amazon, or even say ShopCruise, I know Rakesh is not a big fan of that, but at least you will actually get onboarded there. So your presence is there instead of actually doing it on your own. Being a small individual store with your own online presence is always tough. Because number one, you have to actually spend like crazy. I mean, it's not that it's cheap. You have to spend for Google keywords, you have to keep on updating it, you have to do search engine optimization. Bunch of things which, I mean, you may not have the time or the wherewithal or the staff, right?
I just want to quickly add, well, I completely agree with what Srikanth says, and I think two things that you should really focus on. When you deliver the products, try and think through how will you build your brand. Because at the end of the day, customers buying your brand and not Amazon, not Snapdeal, etc. And if you build traction, I would say invest in your own website. So as and when, in case some of them fail, at least you could get the and people that like your product because it's your traction. At least they can come to your own website and shop also.